My name's kdotmelody. I'm a writer, recording artist, and also the events executive for Point Blank Music School. This October for Black History Month, we've decided to sit down for a chat with some of the UK's most integral contributors to Black British music. My first guest is a formidable UK producer and songwriter by the name of Linton Bennett. Having worked with the likes of Dido, Warren G and Blackstreet, we sit down with Linton to speak about his journey. I hope you enjoy. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. My name is kdotmelody. We are here at Point Blank Music School in Studio 1. And today, to the left of me, I have a formidable guest. He goes by the name of Mr. Linton Bennett. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you, Koy. How are you?
I'm not too bad, man.
Excellent.
I'm not too bad.
Excellent.
Thank you very much for joining me today.
Pleasure.
We're here to just have a little bit of a chat, just kind of kick it. I just wanted to find out a little bit more about you. It's so funny because you work here, I work here, and we always see each other and it's like, hey, what's up? But we're always busy going to do whatever it is that we're going to do.
We're busy.
We're busy people. So we never really get a chance to kind of kick it, catch up, and just, I want to find out a little bit more about you as well. Like I've done my Googles, I've done a little bit of research, but I feel like you can Google someone until the cows come home and you're never really gonna
know them
and kind of understand a little bit more about who they are and where they come from.
Absolutely.
So yeah, how are you doing, man? How have you been during this time actually as well? I haven't seen you for months.
Yeah, it's been a lot of thinking, a lot of, it's been like a purge, really.
Okay.
You know, you said we're always busy, and then the busyness kind of left for a while, and it kind of, things that I haven't had time to do, like listen to new music, and listen to it without any obstacles or distractions. It's really given me that kind of thing that I didn't have time to do before, which is listen to music, digest it, and think, you can still put out stuff, Linton, you just haven't had the time to do it.
Okay, so is that what we've gone back to in lockdown, kind of like writing again, putting music out again?
Yeah, and looking at new equipment and what I could use to bring in to finish things off. I mean, I've got a lovely studio as it is already, but I haven't had time to think like this for a while because I've been constantly working, which is fantastic, working at Point Blank and teaching. But it does diminish your time for writing.
I hear that.
I've got scrap paper everywhere going, that idea that I should have done back in 2019.
Yeah,
it's a good vibe. It's a good vibe.
Sick.
Yeah.
So I guess that's one of kind of the silver linings for you of this period then, being able to just be still, I guess, and kind of like get back to grips with who you are essentially, maybe.
Absolutely. And also knowing that everybody else is having to do the same thing really makes your brain kind of, well, everybody's chilling right now and it's not the best situation, but it's as humans, we fall into line and we do what we do and it becomes a routine that lasts for years until you retire. Something like this that's caused us to stop and reflect a little bit more on our life. I think it's opened up a little bit more of what do you actually want to do aside from what you do 9 to 5,
right?
Week in, week out.
Right.
You must have something to occupy yourself with other than that, and hopefully it's something healthy or creative or things like that. And I think 6 months off, you must be able to find reading, painting, gardening. You know, just these are nice things that people don't have time to do.
That's dope, man. So for you, I guess it was kind of like getting back to the essence.
Looking at my studio and going, I've been neglecting you.
Yeah.
I've really neglected you, and now's the time to do some stuff.
I'm
loving it.
During lockdown, we were kind of getting back to the essence of who we are.
Yeah,
as Linton Bennett, back in the studio and stuff like that. Back in the
studio, communicating, you know, and try to find a common narrative to where we are now because of what's happening. And the thing that came to me most is that everybody missed their entertainment. Their freedom to be entertained. And that made me say, well, you know, music is part of that, and I really feel like I've got a place in what needs to be resolved. And when we come back, you know, new music, revived acts, you know, a new look at life. So hopefully the music's going to be a little bit more guided towards people in general, you know what I mean? Let's not forget that music brings us together.
100.
And COVID-19 is doing its best to keep us apart, but I do believe that music is that magnet that's going to bring, as soon as this is gone, festival, music, food, drink, and company.
Music's like that though, isn't it? It's almost like it's one of the reliable consistencies you can always depend on. Like you know when you have like the desert island conversation, it's like the iPod or whatever, a record or something,
Yeah.
is always one thing that has to be there. You have to have some sort of audio to
Absolutely. I
kind of keep it
mean,
going.
for me, without it, if you told me what was I doing in 1984, I'd be like, I have no idea. Seriously, what was I doing last week? I don't know. But I was listening to that song, so I remember I was doing this and that.
Right.
To me, it's part of the documentation of one's life.
Yeah.
More than anything, you have these things. I got married, I had a kid, I bought a house, but all through it, there's music to guide you through. And I think, well, what's happening now in our lifetimes, the first time it's ever happened, as a musician, I'm really paying close attention to it because it's going to be a massive point in our life where music suddenly falls in with it.
For sure.
You know, and I'm trying to keep abreast of how people feel, what's happening, the political, the cultural sides of things that are going on. And I'm going to try and apply that to new music. That's what's making me want to do music. It's a point in my life now where the world has stopped.
Yeah.
What do I have to say about it? Rather than write a song, see how it goes. I feel like I've been empowered now with the skills that I have to write music to say something about the situation.
I feel that.
And I feel like, you know, it's a really sad situation to be in. But I've always been looking for that. What do I say?
Yeah.
Now's the time to say it.
Now's the time to figure out what it is.
What's going on in my head? What's going on in your head? Let's try and make sense of it and make music to mark and document this time. Not as a bad time, but as a time that we changed.
For sure.
As people to move forward.
That's interesting, man, because that's like, it's kind of like where we are now. I'd like to throw it back just briefly to the inception of you and your art. I remember when I was doing a bit of research, you had a sit down with us actually a few years ago before I came on board, and you were talking about how you kind of first found your love for music.
Yeah.
And you said you were kind of you had a tape player, was it?
That's
from
right.
your brother, and you were just getting on your mum's nerves, just banging on pots and pans.
Yeah, it was the fact that her pans were valuable to her.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
Well, they're not cheap.
They're
still not cheap.
And it's when I used the Dutch pot as a bass kit.
Oh, well, yeah. Come on. You're asking for trouble there. The Dutch pot is an important.
I don't think I got fed for a couple of weeks because of that.
Yeah.
But it was for me, finding music wasn't that I wanted to find it. It found me. I'll be honest with you. I didn't know what I wanted to. As a kid, I just wanted to be a kid, do things and experiment. But there was this one thing that kept going, this is what you know more about and you don't know it yet. And I remember there was one time at a school disco that I won in joint first place with a girl as well.
Okay.
And I remember the teacher saying to me, you move so well to music, you should have won that. And I thought, well, it's because I can hear it differently, miss. And she said, you should follow that.
Okay.
And that's all she said. And I just went, okay, then, all right. And it was just, see what happens. And as I got more confident in the fact that I might not be Stevie Wonder, but I can hear what Stevie Wonder does. I know what he's doing. And if he wants me to cry at that junction, I actually do.
Yeah.
You know, and I get the cold goosebumps. And I ask my friends, did you feel that? And they're like, what, feel what? And I'm I don't get this. Why is it just happening to me?
Yeah.
Then I found out from other musicians that I get that as well. And I said, well, why is that happening? And the more musicians I hung around with, the more explanations I got. You are a musician, you just don't know it yet.
Right.
You've really got to, follow that path or just enjoy it, but you really don't think that this is anything different from what we feel. You've just got a real ear and a feel for it. That's almost a sixth sense to other people's. You use it for emotion. Other people use it for entertainment and to kind of just fill a gap, but you can't get away from it for some reason. And I just accepted it as this is what you can follow. Now you have the time to do it as a young person before you get caught up in 9 to 5.
Listen, there's a few of us dancing on that bridge of just trying to figure it out. I can promise you that. But that's cool that you say that a teacher was like a driving force for that as well.
Yes.
I wanted to ask, how did you actually find yourself in the industry of music? Because so many of us just love music and we might maybe play the guitar at home or just learn keys or just write songs for fun or whatever. But in terms of figuring out like, right, I want to do this all the time for a career, I want it to pay me. What was your in? How did you manage to go about that?
I mean, this is going to be different for everyone, but for me, it was just tenacity. I mean, I'd turn up to, let's start very quickly at the beginning. There were lots of musicians trying to be musicians in my area of East London. And I got to know some of them through going to youth clubs, and some of the youth guys would say, "Oh, I've got a studio," and it was 4-track and maybe a tiny Dr. Boss drum machine and a really old rackety synthesizer. But it was what they were showing me, what you can do with this stuff, and from there it was just basically kind of watching things like Top of the Pops, doing all kind of just being involved with music. And I'd done a few lessons and I didn't like them. It felt restrictive for me.
Lessons on what?
Piano lessons. And my mum said, do some piano lessons. It's very, very good for you. And they are. I'm not denying that. But in my early initial period of being a musician, I made the decision, I just want to explore.
Right.
I really don't care. I just want to hear as much as I can, and I can make judgments about what I like and what I don't like. And that made me start going, I can find my identity in what I like musically. And when I can find that identity, then mix all of those identities up, and we're talking 70s, 80s, 90s influences, jumble them all up and come up with something that's unique, your ID. And if you can blend them really well together so that everyone understands what you're trying to do with it, you might be able to convince a few people to buy your record. And collaboration was the big word for me in my career. When I understood those ID points that I thought, yep, I can listen to classical, I can listen to reggae, rock, I can listen to the hardest punk rock, and I can all make sense out of it and attribute it to music that I can do. That's when I started going, let me into the studio, let me have a go.
Yeah.
Let me hear. And I couldn't really play anything, but I was like, I can hear it. And I started explaining it to them, and they'll be go, so do you mean this? And they'll say, yeah, that's it. What is that? Oh, that's a C major flat 5/9. I need to know this. It was just picking up scraps from everybody until I felt confident enough to say, give me some work. Let me give this a go.
So that's interesting. You said two things that really piqued my interest there. You said identity and collaboration. What I want to know is, how did you figure out that within your identity that was kind of made up of these interests in all of these various types of music and stuff, when it was time to go and collaborate, how did you manage to keep your identity to make it that was what Linton Bennett brought to the table when he was in the studio with these people?
It's a fantastic point.
You've got on your list of accolades, achievements of people who you've worked with, Dido, Boyz II Men, Warren G. Like, how does, first of all, you wouldn't usually put those three people in the same sentence, but you've got one person who links them all together, which is you. So I want to know, like, how did you manage to keep that core, but then still diversify what it is that you do?
Wow. Where do I start with this one? I do remember when I first started off, there was a stereotype that was placed upon me as a black man writing music.
Right.
And I didn't have any problem with that because, let's say, late 70s going into the early 80s, I didn't see that as a problem because music wasn't like how it was now. It was genre, but that's it. There was just reggae. There wasn't no dancehall. There wasn't no lovers rock. There wasn't really that. It was just, there's reggae, there's punk, there's rock, and that's it. And all of them were of the highest quality back then. I mean, you'd find it very hard to find something bad, really bad. And I as a black man in trying to do music in an industry that I perceived as open and free, everybody can have a go, there were some stereotypical moments where people saying, this ain't your kind of music, man. What do you know about this? And I'd be like, give me a go with it and I'll show you. And for me, it worked. Because when it was like, look, I don't think you should play the guitar like that. I think you should play it a bit more like this. And they'd be like, it actually sounds good, And I just wanted to break down this stereotype that music belongs to a certain race or culture of people because it's theirs. It's like, no, it's not. Music doesn't belong to anybody. It's free. It's what they've agreed to and say, this is what we like dancing to, this is what we like listening to. It's got a lot of our cultural references in it. And it's those cultural references that I took on board. Punk, I loved it. And then I've done a little bit of research that punk really goes back. It's a mixture of everything.
Right.
It's and I went to a few punk raves and there was a lot of black people there. A lot of black people.
Well, they
there.
say that part of punk's identity at its core is the rebellion factor, isn't
Absolutely.
it? And that's when kind of musical theorists or whatever you want to call them make their correlations, they usually kind of say the closest thing to punk at the moment is grime.
Yeah.
Because it comes from that just internal rebellious state.
Absolutely.
And I imagine as a black person back then, you'd have needed like a safe space to go and kind of just be free, you know, and essentially get that out.
Well, I mean, the rebellion side of it was, I didn't feel I had a right to rebel about anything. I was a privileged, in comparison to the history of black people on the planet, I felt very privileged living in England as a black kid that went to school and had parents that had jobs. And I thought to myself, look, there were rebellious music, reggae and Toots and the Wailers, Bob Marley were rebelling in very sensible, very articulate ways. And then you had real rebellion records that were just way beyond me. And so I thought to myself, what do I need to rebel about? What I need to do is understand what the rebelling is about, find the musical connection to that, and then apply that in a way that it's going to rebel to make people respond in a way that's going to help the situation, not go, yeah, you know what, we agree with you, this is rubbish, because then you're back to square one. So I wanted to mix and collaborate with all, you know, Italians, Chinese, I've worked with everybody on the planet, and in every situation, it's just been, this isn't about me being black, you being Chinese, you being white in the studio. This is about how do we say what we need to say as a unified collaboration and that we all agree. That's when you can put it out and say, we've said something right, we've said something good. And if it sells one copy, that one person will be educated by knowing that music is a collaboration. And if it's got angst to it, if it's got a lot of historical references, if it's got a lot of, you know, stand up and be counted, it's got to be done in a way that everybody can understand it, I think, rather than a certain group, and that group get more angry and then boom, boom, boom. Music should be there to help.
No, I like that.
Make a point,
I like that.
And then help after that.
I think that's great. It's almost like you decided it was like a conscious effort to carry on the conversation.
Yeah.
As opposed to maybe stoke the fires or inflame.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
And I think it's really interesting because when making music, it can be so easy to go down either road.
Yeah.
But you made a conscious decision to kind of be like, nah, what we have here is something that can bring people together.
Absolutely. And that's in no way saying that people shouldn't scream and shout on record.
Of course. That's everybody's prerogative.
Absolutely.
But your prerogative was that I'm going to get the person to the right of me, person to the left of me, and say that the three of us can achieve something together.
We can achieve something together. And we can say what those records are shouting that message out. We can say it in a way that we agree that as a group, this is how we feel, and we've come to some sort of agreement in music about it. And you're going to hear that agreement when we play it. And that I could convince myself I can do a lot better than going, because that's just not my personality, and that's not my identity in music. But I fully understand it. It's necessary, but it's got to be done by the people who really can do that and carry that energy in the music when they you know, that's their role and identity in the music scene. And for me to try and jump on it and be like that when I'm not, I'd rather say I understand the message. Let me try and give that message in my way to an audience who won't listen to that. So I can try and blend everything together, and that we all meet at a counterpoint of understanding through music.
Okay. And it's so interesting that we got here organically, because one of the questions I actually wanted to ask you was, how do you feel, if at all, your blackness shaped or affected your musical identity? But we've actually kind of just moonwalked through that.
Yeah.
what I definitely wanted to find out from you before we got out of here was, when you are in a session with these different individuals, what is your role? Are you there on the keys? Are you there on the drums? Wow. Are you just there with a pen and pad saying this might sound great? Or like how do you songwrite? How do you help?
It's a process that I've created. Okay. And I'll be honest with you, a lot of the process was created out of fear. Like I got to work with some amazing musicians at a very early stage. I mean, rock legends like Gary Moore, you know, at Dido, for instance, you know, bumping into LL Cool J and then him passing me on to Warren G and saying
that's a different interview in itself. What do you mean?
Yeah, but it was out of fear to come in, and I'd done a lot of listening, and that served me well. I realised going into a studio and going, right, I'm Linton now, everyone move out the way. It's good, isn't it? Because I say so. It doesn't get the job done.
Right.
My role in the studio is to say, keep the gravitational pull close. Keep everyone close. Don't, you know, keep to a narrative, but always oversee. Okay. Always oversee. Now that might sound like I'm trying to be the king biscuit in the studio, but it's not. I'm trying to say, look, if I work with people, I try to find, first of all, what's your scope of music? What do you listen to? Where is it that you come from? And I work with that. If somebody has a limitation of just 3 genres that they listen to constantly, but are on a session, I will try and find that genre in the music we're trying to write, and accommodate it to a common goal. So starting off, when I first started this, I was all over the shop. I'll play everything, I'll do everything very badly. Then I learned how to play better, and then I learned how to program and produce, and then after the years went, it was more like, all right, we all know where we're going with this, we all know what to do, here's a few chords, what do you think? And I literally now just let the session take shape, and I'm like, no, we're going in the wrong way, let's try this. And I work very strictly to a time frame. I'm like Eminem. Eminem turns up at 9 and finishes at 5.
Right.
Even if he's in the middle of a rap, he'll be like, "Sorry, Drake, that's it." And Drake,
I heard Nicki Minaj used to record like that as well. She'd be in the studio from 10 till 6 latest. She treated it like a business day.
Yeah. It's to keep fresh. So for me, in that respect, it's like, if the session's at my studio, then I'm gonna oversee everything, and I want it to get to a point where everyone's injected. I've digested, they've digested, and we're all going, this works. And then I'll kind of oversee it. If it's someone else's studio, I'm in there kind of spinning their plates for them. And I'm like, oh, that's good. I know what that's going to sound like with that. Let's do this and let's do that. And it's a very beautiful thing to kind of stay back in the background and watch it happening, but oversee it as well, knowing where you want to go with it.
Kind of like a musical director, almost.
Basically.
Or like an executive producer, perhaps.
Absolutely. I was trying to avoid those words.
Because, Why?
Because I've never liked them on records. Executive producer, what's that? Producer, okay. My knowledge of executive production is I've paid for this and I've come and gone, that's great at the end of it. That's what I've seen as executive producer.
Okay.
Then, I'm not saying that's the way it's gone now, but it was, I've paid for this, I'm overseeing it, and I'm going, this is good, maybe turn up the hi-hat.
Right.
It's great. I don't mind these roles. You know, we have to have a hierarchy in order to show what's going on, but I'm a very much a kind of, come in, give it all you got, let's put all the coal in the fire, get what we got out of us, and let's piece it together. I've never gone into the studio going, right, we're going to come out with a hit. I've always gone in there going, let's come out with something that's all of us. And then if we agree this is us, then I will gladly walk away and say, if this doesn't make it, let's try again.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I really feel I believe in this track.
Yeah.
So for anyone that goes into a studio, go, let's write a hit, I feel very sorry for them.
Yeah.
I do. I feel very sorry.
That expectation, the pressure and stuff.
You can only do that when you're someone like Adele, I think, where you can, you know what, this song ain't that good, but guess what? It will go to number 1.
I feel like once you get to like the Adele, Drake, Beyonce status, like it's more than likely whatever you touch because of the acclaim it's just going to go anyway.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't, not that it doesn't matter. But it matters less, perhaps.
Exactly.
Before we get out of here, I want to ask you a question. What is British black music to you?
Well, British black music to me is an identity of being black British. It's really as simple as that. We have come from, our parents are the descendants from the West Indies, Africa, and they've come here to make their life. And my mum and my dad, you know, there was a picture of the Queen on a plate in my living room. You know, they came and they accepted, this is the rules, this is how the culture works, and we have to fit in. And I don't feel like I had to fit in. I feel like I was in that moment in England where the cultures were of the world were being put together to create the England and London that we have now. And I find it was the most passionate moment or moments of my life growing up, seeing my parents accommodate to another culture that I'm going to be the one, the benefit of this culture. They're the ones who are trying to get me to have that benefit. And so I do identify myself as Black British with West Indian culture and heritage. And to say anything less than that, I feel is what's going to be the problem with us moving forward as Black musicians, Black people in Britain. Identify with it, work within it, and form a Black British culture that doesn't have to be identified as Black British, just Britishness with culture from Blacks in there. And I think, it's not a wish, it's something that needs to happen. But at the same time, everybody understands that the identity and the culture is rich, it needs to be respected and celebrated. And the minute we can do that, I think we're going to be in a better place. I think it's happened with music. I just think it's situations that force it to go another way. So yeah, I identify myself as Black British with a love for my culture, and that culture in 2020 I'm allowed to express in England through the music, and I feel very confident that the UK, a lot of people might not say this, but I feel very confident in the UK that all cultures really do respect each other musically, big time. Northern Soul, it's you've got UB40 doing reggae. I mean, it's just beautiful. You've got Black bands doing rock music. If we don't identify as Black British, we're going to lose a lot of that. But don't lose the fact that you're Black British and you've got a culture. Make sure that the culture is what you promote as celebrationary to the British culture, and I think that's where we need to go with. That's where we are with the music, and that's where we need to hold on and carry on with. Just try and dilute this us and them thing. Now we've been on this rock for so long now.
For a very long time.
For a very long time, and I think music's that thing that's going. We're here. It's here. Enjoy it. Let it bring us together. Now, and I'm hoping after COVID-19, the first festival that happened will be like the anti-racist festival of 1977, I believe. There was a stop the riots and black racism and racism in the 70s, a massive festival, 1977. I'm hoping that that's the kind of thing that might reopen now after COVID, that we have, let's all just get together again, and let's use this to bring us together through music and bring the culture, bring everyone in. Sorry, I'm going on a little bit.
No. But it's a big question. Yeah. It deserves a big answer.
But use music, use the gathering of people to bring us together as a country, and every country should use that massive platform to bring about change. And music, I think, is the main thing we should be looking at to lift everyone's spirits afterwards.
Spoken like a true musician.
Spoken like
a true musician. Amazing. Linton, thank you so much for joining me, man.
You're very welcome.
Guys, my name is kdotmelody. This has been Linton Bennett. We have been Point Blank Music School. Thank you very much. For more content like this, be sure to like and subscribe. And to find out information about our courses, check out pointblankmusicschool.com. See you next time.